Vice President Todd Breland, before you begin today's meeting, I would like to read a brief safety announcement. Good morning. Welcome to the May 15, 2024 Agenda Review Committee meeting. Before we start the meeting, I would like to share a few safety points and notes. Please note that the primary exit and entrance to this room is the door which you used to enter this morning. If you are leaving the room, please use this door. The restrooms are just outside the entrance door to your immediate left. During the meeting, we ask that you keep all aisles and exits clear. If you need any assistance during the meeting, please waive the attention of one of our security officers. Thank you for joining us today. Vice President Todd Breland, we are now ready for you to begin the meeting.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Chicago Board of Education Agenda Review Committee meeting today, May 15th, 2024. My name is Elizabeth Todd Breland, and on behalf of my other board members, I want to thank you for joining us today. We are holding today's Agenda Review Committee meeting in the boardroom at 42 West Madison Street. I would also like to note that board members and senior leadership are physically present in the boardroom. Registered speakers may join us in person or virtually if they opted to do so, and registered observers are joining us today in person. The Agenda Review Committee meeting of Wednesday, May 15th, 2024 is hereby called to order. Board Secretary, please call the roll.
Thank you. Member Fahey Hughes?
Here.
Member Woods?
Here.
Member Estrada?
Here.
Member Morales?
Here.
Vice President Todd Breland?
Here.
We have 5 members present. We have a quorum. I'd also like to recognize Ruchi Verma, General Counsel, Charles Mayfield, Chief Operating Officer. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get started with today's board meeting, agenda items, I should say, to be considered for the May 23rd board meeting, I want to say a few words about our budget and legislative priorities. I, again, this month am presiding over this meeting as I did last month because President Xi, joined by CEO Martinez, as well as CTU members, educators, and advocates are in Springfield today advancing our legislative agenda and advocating on behalf of our students, educators, families, and community members. This board stands with our labor partners and educators who are in Springfield today, as well as the many parents, students, community members, and community-based organizations who have been advocating for our fair share of resources for many, many years. We thank you for your advocacy. As we've shared many, many times at our board meetings and other spaces and events, from budget forums last fall to recent strategic planning engagement, CPS isn't getting its fair share of state funding. CPS schools are underfunded by over $1.1 billion with a B dollars, according to the state's own adequacy funding formula for Illinois schools. This is an issue that acutely impacts Chicago public schools because we disproportionately serve students with the greatest needs statewide. Overall in the state, 49% of students are low income. In CPS, that percentage is 70%. CPS serves nearly 40% of all Black students in the state. CPS serves nearly 40% of all homeless students in the state. We serve nearly 30% of English learners in the state. So while these funding issues are acute, statewide, they are particularly acute here for us in CPS, but they are statewide issues, and we support adequate funding for all districts in the state of Illinois, not just for CPS, because all of our students deserve a fully funded education. At the same time, there are other issues that particularly impact CPS. The state only covers 31% of CPS's pension costs while covering virtually all pension costs for every other district in the state. This leaves CPS with a $700 million pension burden just this year, a burden no other Illinois school district has to deal with. And while Chicago taxpayers are then having to subsidize the pensions for other districts. As we have said many times, the federal pandemic funds expire this year. And while we have stretched pandemic funding so that we could have $300 million left for this upcoming school year, we still have about a $400 million gap to close for this upcoming school year. The following year looks even worse. We are looking at a $700 million budget gap for the 2025-2026 school year when pandemic dollars will completely expire. I've been serving on this board now for 5 years. It'll be 5 years next month. And this budget cycle will be my 6th budget cycle. And over that time period, we have tried to build greater transparency, specifically about our structural budget problems. I remember the budget community forums that started in the fall of 2019 and into the winter of 2020, which were attended by hundreds and hundreds of parents and community members and educators and students and families from across the city. And people were shocked to find out how underfunded we are as a school district. Even last fall, when we hosted budget forums, people were still learning about our structural budget problems. And as a district and as a board, we have been ringing the bell for years at this point, throughout my entire time here, about our structural deficit and the need for the state to provide its fair share. And I think, as many of you know, my actual job is, I work at UIC and I'm a historian. And I've been thinking a lot this week because there's been a lot of commemorations around the 70th anniversary of the Brown versus Board of Education decision. That anniversary will be this Friday, May 17th. And, you know, Brown has a complicated history and a complicated legacy for us. At the time of Brown versus Board, many Black families actually didn't agree with the NAACP's approach to pursuing integration as a strategy, and instead wanted funding equalization. That was their demand. Desegregation came with some new opportunities for Black students, but also with the mass firing of Black teachers in the South. The slow pace of desegregation and court challenges in the South and in places like Chicago eventually led many Black families to call for community control of schools or pursue other models of schooling entirely. But across all of these movements, the fundamental ask has been for a high-quality education for all students, particularly those for whom this has been historically denied. That high-quality education requires not even just adequately funded schools, but fully funded schools that are funded for excellence. And that is exactly what affluent communities across this state and across this country have. But too many schools and districts serving Black, brown, and low-income students are far from even being adequately funded. Education scholar Glory Ladson Billings tells us that we shouldn't even be talking about something called an opportunity gap without talking about the educational debt that has accumulated over time and that's owed to our children. So on this anniversary of the Brown decision, that's what we're mobilizing here for in Chicago and hopefully with the rest of our state. For our communities to demand from the branches of our government that actually hold the purse strings to fully fund our school system and our children. According to Cranes, the state's evidence-based funding formula is underfunded by more than $7 billion. How do we pay our educational debt to Black, brown, and low-income students when the state keeps making minimum payments on this debt? At its present funding rate, Illinois will not achieve adequate funding until 2054. My fifth grader will be 40 years old at that point. Nearly 2 more generations of public school students will be deprived of their right to a quality, fully funded public education. And we should all see that as being unacceptable. And our children cannot wait. At the budget and strategic planning meetings and forums, frankly, every time we go out into the community and talk about this, parents and community members ask us how they can get involved and advocate with us. So earlier this week, the district sent a communication which outlines various ways people can get involved. And we hope that parents, students, community members, and all of our CPS stakeholders can come together around our shared goals of getting what our students deserve. Thank you. And now let's proceed with the order of today's meeting.
Vice President Todd Breland, before you move forward, I'd like to recognize that Board Member Lozano has joined the meeting at 10:41 a.m. and Bodana Shikumbova, Chief Education Officer, joined the meeting at 10:38 a.m.
Thank you. The order of the meeting will be as follows: public participation, discussion of agenda review committee meetings, meeting items 1 through 10, followed by 11 through 20, closed session, then reconvening and adjourning. So let's proceed with today's public participation session. Thank you for joining to share your comments with the board. In compliance with the Illinois Open Meetings Act, public participation, sometimes referred to as public comment, is the portion of the board meeting or hearing that grants district stakeholders the opportunity to address the board with their concerns and comments. Note that public participation is the time for the board and CPS senior leadership to listen and hear from you, rather than a time for dialogue with board members during or after your remarks. While we can't discuss personnel matters, public participation is a key component of transparent governance, and it provides us as board members, as well as senior leadership, an opportunity to listen to everyone who is signed up to speak. This board takes equity of voice seriously. While we may not address your comments directly during public participation, CPS leadership is always present at our meetings and are able to address concerns as follow-ups after the meeting. As a district and as a board, we also have many other spaces for authentic dialogue. For example, each and every one of our board members host board office hours so that we can continue and have more robust conversations. Thank you for your attention and consideration. As a reminder, union representatives will speak before public participation, and any elected officials will speak after the conclusion of public participation. Board Secretary, please share the rules of public participation.
Thank you, Vice President Todd Breland. Members of the public who registered to speak were given the option to attend in person or via an electronic format. For those who preferred to attend via an electronic format, they were given information to access this meeting by dialing a number and using their phone. We did this so that speakers with limited or no access to the internet or who may have weak internet connection could still participate using their phones. Also, members of the public may submit written comments for Board of Education meetings via the written comments form on the board's website at cpsboe.org or mail to 1 North Dearborn Suite 950. Written comments received between the day the public agenda was posted through 5 p.m. the day after the Board of Education meeting will be submitted to the board and published within 5 business days on our website at cpsboe.org. Speakers, please listen while I provide directions for public participation. I will call your name and number when it is your turn to speak. For speakers joining us virtually, as a reminder, to unmute, please press *6. Once you hear your name, please state your name for the record. I will then start the 2-minute timer. When there are 30 seconds remaining, I will inform you so that you can proceed to conclude your remarks to allow for the next speaker to begin. And for any observers that are here to stand with speakers, please stand against the glass partition to keep all aisles and exits clear. Thank you. Vice President Todd Breland, we are now ready to call registered speakers from the speakers list, and we will begin with speaker number 1, Jasmine Lopez.
Gracias. Hola, buenos días y gracias por la oportunidad. Mi nombre es Yasmín López. Yo soy una madre de un estudiante de capacidades diferentes dentro de las escuelas Noble. Mi hijo asiste en la escuela Baker College Prep. Como madre dedicada y profundamente involucrada en la educación de mi hijo, creo firmemente en utilizar mi voz para abogar no solo por él, sino por la mejora de las condiciones educativas para todos los niños. Cuando me enteré de la serie de foros de participación organizada por CPS para discutir su plan estratégico para los próximos 5 años, estaba ansiosa por participar. Asistí a la sesión del 8 de mayo. Sin embargo, me dejó decepcionada por la ausencia de los miembros de esta junta y la falta de discusión sobre las escuelas charter. Aunque la sesión no tocó el plan de CPS relacionado con las escuelas charter, me animó la presencia de muchos padres de escuelas charter dispuestos a expresar sus puntos de vista. Sigo interesada en proteger mi elección como miembro de la comunidad escolar Noble, ya que no se discutió el plan de esta junta escolar hacia las escuelas charter, lo cual tengo entendido era el propósito de estas juntas. Pregunto, ¿cuándo en verdad van a recibir opiniones de la comunidad? Ya que no se les dio espacio a los padres de las escuelas charter en esas juntas. Extiendo mi gratitud al señor Pedro Martínez por su receptividad y aprecio profundamente sus garantías en cuanto a la protección de mi elección como madre. Gracias por su atención.
Muchas gracias por sus comentarios.
And we'll have the statement translated into English by our Spanish translator.
Good morning. My name is Jasmine Lopez, and I'm the mother of a special needs student at Noble Schools, specifically Baker College Prep. As a dedicated mother deeply involved in my son's education, I firmly believe in utilizing my voice to advocate not only for him, but also for improvements in the educational conditions for all children. When I learned of the series of participation forums organized by CPS in order to discuss their strategic plan for the next 5 years, I was excited to participate. I attended the May 8th session but was left disappointed by the absence of members of this board and the lack of discussion around charter schools. Although the session did not touch upon CPS plans when it came to charters, I was encouraged by the presence of many charter school parents who came willing to express their points of view. I remain interested in protecting my choice as a member of the Noble School community, given that this school board's plan regarding charter schools was not discussed, which I understand was the purpose of these forums. I ask, when are you truly going to give space to the community's opinions, given that it was not given to parents of charter school children at these forums? I extend my gratitude to Mr. Pedro Martinez for his receptiveness, and I am deeply grateful for his guarantees when it comes to protecting my choices as a mother. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Jason Emiet, speaker number 2, who is joining us virtually. Please enter *6 to unmute. Jason
Hello?
Emiet, yes, please proceed.
Hello, my name is Jason Emiat. I'm a parent and LSC member at LaSalle Language Academy. This is the second time I've utilized public participation, the first on April 17th. Again, I'd like to address how the initial 2025 school budget impacts magnet schools, as well as the frustration felt by magnet schools due to CPS's messaging on this matter. Our CEO, Pedro Martinez, continues to inform the public that the proposed budget presents, quote, no disproportionate impact on any one set of schools. Last week, during a widely viewed interview with WTTW to provide clarity about the budget, Mr. Martinez stated the following about magnet schools. I can guarantee you their programming hasn't been reduced. As a counter, I can guarantee those statements are not correct. They are at best misleading. LaSalle Language Academy started its world language program in 1977. For almost 50 years, it has been providing rigorous language instruction to students from all over Chicago, helping prepare them to fulfill their mandated high school graduated requirement of 2 credits in world language. LaSalle was indeed disproportionately impacted and programming reduced overnight with the proposed budget. LaSalle currently provides core curriculum instruction in world language, which again is a mandated CPS graduation requirement with 8 teachers. The proposed budget provides 1 singular language position to LaSalle. 8 current language teachers down to an allocation of 1 is a reduction of almost 90%, which seems to be the very definition of disproportionate impact. As an LSC member, I'm keenly aware of the trade-offs necessary to salvage LaSalle's language program. For example, the proposed budget guidelines
Speaker
will
number
require
2,
the
you have 30
elimination
seconds
of a
remaining.
PE position in order to retain just 1 language teacher, and that clearly results in reduced programming for LaSalle students. If CPS truly supports its magnet schools, it needs to examine the reality of the proposed budget and its disproportionate negative impact on magnet schools. I'm certain that the LSC at LaSalle would welcome the opportunity for that conversation. Otherwise, please consider a halt to the current messaging on this matter, as it's misleading and only makes the situation for magnet programs more difficult to manage at the school level. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ishmael Terry, speaker number 3. Please enter *6 to unmute.
Good morning. My name is Ishmael Terry, and I'm looking forward to learning more about the access of the assessment needs that you utilize. What brand or what programming did you utilize to gain access to all of these enormous numbers that I was listening to your vice president was discussing? Secondly, we're facing the same tribute or same issues, travelers in the city of Detroit. So we are standing with you guys on how to remove this blight situation when it comes to education. I would like to know how could we work together here in the city of Detroit with our education system failing and your education system to improve the lives of Black students and brown students. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mhm.
Our next speaker is Leobardo Guzman, speaker number 4. Please enter *6 to unmute.
Por favor, presione el estrella.
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Ok, buenos días, miembros del board. Les pido de favor, como miembros del Concilio de Padres, que nos ayuden para poder tomar las decisiones sobre el presupuesto de Marine Leadership Academy. Como ustedes saben, en la cadena de correos electrónicos que se han estado mandando estas 2 semanas, la señora Novi, la principal de MLA, nunca nos envió el presupuesto en la fecha que ella dijo. Como ustedes ya saben, se les ha mandado las pruebas de las fechas exactas y también en esos correos electrónicos se les ha mandado la comunicación entre la presidenta del Concilio de Padres y la señora Laura Lemoyne, donde la señora Lemoyne confirma que a Marine Leadership Academy se le dieron 2 extensiones y la señora Kashasha Ford y la señora Carolina Stay de la oficina del LLC del concilio tenían conocimiento de esas extensiones y el concilio de padres de MLA nunca fuimos notificados y como concilio tenemos el derecho de revisar, opinar y por consiguiente aprobar el contrato. Gracias por su atención y estamos trabajando por un lugar seguro y una buena educación para nuestros hijos y por el bienestar de la comunidad escolar. Gracias.
Gracias por sus comentarios.
Thank you. And now we'll have the statement translated.
Good morning, board members. As a member of the school's Parents Council, I ask you to please help us so that we can make budget decisions at Marine Leadership Academy. As you know from the email chain that has been circulating for the past 2 weeks, Principal Novi at MLA never sent the budget on the date she indicated she would. As you know, you have been sent evidence of the exact dates. These emails also include the exchange between the Parent Council Chairwoman and Ms. Laura Lemon, where Mrs. Lemon confirms that MLA received 2 extensions, and that Ms. Kashasha Ford and Ms. Carolina Stay of the Council LSC office had knowledge of these extensions. The MLA Parents Council was never notified, and as a council, we have the right to review, comment on, and approve the contract. Thank you for your attention. We are working to ensure a safe place and a good education for our children and the well-being of the school community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Luz Sarama, speaker number 5. Please enter *6 to unmute.
Buenos días, miembros del board y Mr. Martínez. Primero quiero darles las gracias en nombre de los estudiantes y toda la comunidad escolar por la oportunidad de que la Escuela Marine Leadership Academy empiece el año escolar bajo una nueva administración. Ahora les pido que permitan que el Consejo de Padres sean encargados de tomar el nuevo presupuesto. Miembros de la Junta, ustedes saben, han sido informados de cómo la señora Novi, Laura Lemon, Ms. Kashasha Ford y Carolina Stay han actuado con el concilio de MLA. Solo para que tengan una idea, la señora Novi abrió posiciones que no fueron aprobadas, que en realidad no tenían ningún beneficio para los estudiantes. Una de esas posiciones fue el de justicia restaurativa, que fue creada para Pedro González, con el mismo lo indicó a los otros empleados de la escuela. También la de colegios y carreras que la señora Novi cerró en el año fiscal 23-24 para darle a Pedro González diferente posición y más dinero. Miembros del board, les pido que lean los emails que les he mandado con pruebas de que todo lo que decimos se puede comprobar. Han sido 3 años abogando por los estudiantes y padres de MLA. Ahora que tomaron la decisión de sacar a la principal, les pido que acepten que el concilio de padres sean los encargados del presupuesto. Pronto les mandaré el presupuesto que creó la señora Novi para que se den cuenta que el interés de los estudiantes no estuvo presente en sus decisiones. Muchas gracias.
Gracias por sus comentarios.
Thank you, and we'll have the statement translated.
Puede comprobar.
Good morning, board members. First, I want to thank you on behalf of the students and the entire school community for the opportunity Marine Leadership Academy has of beginning the new school year under a new administration. Now I ask you to allow the Parents' Council to be in charge of preparing a new budget. Board members, you have already been informed as to how Ms. Novi, Laura Limon, Kashasha Ford, and Carolina Stay have acted with the MLA Council. Just so that you have an idea, Ms. Novi opened unapproved positions which in reality have no benefits for students. One of these, in restorative justice, which was created for Pedro Gonzalez, as he himself indicated to school employees. Similarly, the college and career position, which Ms. Novi closed on the fiscal year 23-24, was created to give Pedro Gonzalez a different position and more money. Board members, I ask that you read the emails that I have sent to you with evidence of all that we have said, so that you can see for yourselves. It has been 3 years which I have spent advocating for students and MLA parents, and now that the decision has been made to throw out the principal, I ask that you accept the Parent Council as the people in charge of the budget. Soon, I will send the budget that I will leave Ms. Novi, so that you can see that that the budget created by Ms. Novi, so you can see that her interest was not in students. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Vice President Todd Breland, this concludes public participation.
Thank you, Board Secretary. This concludes public participation. Board Secretary, do you have a statement to make?
I do. Vice President Todd Breland, for the record, MO1 motion regarding recess is being withdrawn.
Okay, thank you. Board members, we will now proceed with potential board reports to be considered at the May 23rd, 2024 regular meeting. After each item is presented, board members will have the opportunity to ask their questions and make comments before proceeding to the next item on the agenda. Board members, we will begin with the following education items, numbers 1 through 5, and to begin with item 1. 1, authorize the first renewal agreements with various vendors to provide professional learning services.
Morning.
Good morning.
My name is John Bull. I'm the Director of Professional Learning and Office of Teaching and Learning. We're recommending the board to authorize the first renewal agreements with various professional learning service providers to provide services to schools, network, and central offices at the May 23rd, 2024 board meeting. These agreements will provide a vetted pool of partners who are asked to engage in training provided by the district to ensure that their professional learning reflects the district's vision, priorities, and initiatives. The total amount of this renewal is not to exceed $20 million of central office and school spend with multiple vendors between the dates of June 1st, 2024 and May 31st, 2026. The vendors selected for this pool, which are listed on the following slides, were chosen based on their pedagogical knowledge, positive references, and philosophy of professional learning. The KPIs listed on the slide were also used to determine eligibility for renewal, in addition to ensuring the continued alignment with our district vision. While the 9% of minority-owned businesses in the pool falls short of our 30% goal, we've issued a supplemental RFQ specifically designed to increase the number of high-quality minority and women-owned professional learning vendors that are in the pool. Additionally, 24 of the vendors in this pool, which equates to 35%, are not-for-profit companies who are not eligible for women and minority-owned business status. We're requesting this authorization so that the district schools, networks, and central office departments can continue to select from a vetted pool of high-quality partners trained to support the district's instructional initiatives. This also supports the district's priority of developing and supporting talented and empowered educators through ongoing professional learning to support high-quality instruction. In direct alignment with the district's vision, the system is designed to drive the academic progress of every child in every neighborhood by supporting adult learners across the district to build their knowledge and practices to deliver on this vision. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I do appreciate that. Thank you for highlighting the MWBE very specifically about why we're not necessarily making that targeted number. And talk to us more about how, even though it may not be some of the companies are not, they're too small and so they're not required to. How are we addressing though, the spirit of the desire to increase diversity, especially in this area where you're talking about vendors who are educating our educators essentially, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So as I said, the not-for-profit agencies that are in the pool, which is a large portion of professional learning vendors, are eligible for that status. And then we've worked with the equity office to ensure, and the business equity office to ensure that we are able to recruit high-quality professional learning vendors that are minority or women-owned businesses. I can follow up as we're reviewing the supplemental RFQ currently of the numbers that will be added to the pool to
That would
support
be
that number.
appreciated. Yeah. Moreover, because we're talking about the spirit as well as the letter of the law, and adherence to that, it's really important for me, especially I think about the other ways in which we can express that diversity, right? So it's looking at who's a part of that organization, who's in leadership, even if they don't necessarily have to meet that stringent certification.
Yeah,
So,
additionally, I appreciate
thank you.
that.
Could you say something more? There's a lot of vendors here, right? I know they're used all over our district, and maybe it's a follow-up item, but just a sense of how at the school level, school leaders, teachers, educators are making decisions about which of these vendors they're going to use.
Sure. So we did request specific topics and specialty expertises for the vendors to submit by. Currently, the pool is issued as a general pool from them to select from. But that's something moving forward as we're adding to that as well, can add additional context and supporting. Additionally, a lot of the vendors that are in the pool were specifically requested to apply for the pool because they're already currently working with schools that, will account for their quality and pedagogical vision and things like that.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to item 2. Authorize the second final renewal agreements with Lakeshore Parent LLC, DBA Lakeshore Learning Materials LLC, and School Specialty LLC for the purchase of educational supplies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, my name is Kara Thorstensen. I'm with the Office of Teaching and Learning. I'd like to ask the board to authorize the second and final renewal for the purchase of pre-K-12 educational supplies for a not to exceed dollar amount of $12 million. These are the vendor partners that provide the sort of day-to-day basics of the school supplies to schools, things like crayons, markers, chart paper, colored pencils. This is just as essential for learning as learning materials themselves. There is historically over the last few years spend that comes out of central office from these two partners, predominantly for 2 large projects for Skyline and then also for Universal Pre-K. Both of those projects, the amount of spend coming out of central office for the next fiscal year is going to be a lot smaller than it's been in the past. We don't anticipate the spend for the Office of Early Childhood for Pre-K to exceed $500,000. As the build out is really done and it's just going to be replenishment for those classrooms. And then for Skyline, materials are going to be provided for schools who are newly adopting in content areas. But that because there's a great degree of saturation of Skyline in our schools already, that's a smaller number than it's been in previous years. And so this, of course, doesn't cover any books for the schools. This simply covers the materials that they use to engage with learning. These 2 vendor partners have a long history of work with the district and have been consistently very reliable.
More of a budget question. Is there opportunity for them to, because they've been a long-term partner and because of the financial situation that we're in, as we look at the cost of any cost savings that they can offer for the district?
That's a good question. I know that in pursuing new or renewals that we've been asking vendor partners to try to find places to save. This particular agreement is a piggyback off of a contract made by an organization that then the district leverages their contract. I can explain more in writing after the fact if necessary. So I don't necessarily know how much flexibility we have for this renewal to make price change requests, but considering that this is the final renewal, I think moving forward, we'll be able to go back to have that discussion with the vendor partners.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. So the actuals for minority and women-owned businesses are actually almost right at the district's expectations. We're at 29% of minority-owned and 7% women-owned for this pool.
Thank you. All right, we will go on to item number 3. Authorize the first and second final renewal agreements with the library video company DBA Safari Montage for Learning Object Repository LOR services.
I'm sorry, VP. Sorry about that. Quick comment. There are rebates associated with that last proposal for
Okay.
lecture learning and school specialty. So we do get rebate checks in regards to that. Happy for procurement to be able to share more information if needed in
That'd be
regards
great.
to that rebate amount.
Great, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Chief Mayfield.
Good morning, board members. My name is Helena Swanson-Nystrom, and I'm the Executive Director from the Department of Curriculum, and I'm joined today by Ed Wagner, the Deputy CIO. We are recommending the board approve the first and second renewal agreement for Safari Montage to serve as the district's Learning Object Repository, or LOR, at the May 23rd board meeting for a not to exceed dollar amount of $7 million annually or $14 million in total. The LOR houses the Skyline digital curriculum, serving the role of course management, permissioning, intellectual property management, and metadata tracking. Without approval, schools would not have access to Skyline curriculum. Additionally, the LOR is leveraged by ODLSS to provide a parent-facing edtech library for families of diverse learners in fulfillment of a state mandate. The work is designed to support our goal of resource equity and our commitment to high-quality, rigorous instruction as articulated in the district's blueprint. I think it's helpful context to note the work that was led over the last year to get to this recommendation. Last fall, we released an RFI to learn more about enterprise-level platforms that could play a role in the district's digital learning environment, the suite of systems that support the distribution of high-quality curriculum and other supplemental resources. Based on the results of the RFI, the district is recommending leveraging Google Classroom as a more formal teacher-facing LMS or learning management system. The LOR will then play an essential behind-the-scenes role in course management, permissioning, IP management, metadata tracking, and then in the future, generative AI capacity. The importance of this role will be heightened as we move away from external vendor curriculum development, in particular in the area of IP management, but the formalization of Google Classroom will significantly reduce direct teacher interaction with the LOR. This spring, we released a survey to teachers and received almost 600 responses. The survey collected feedback on improvements to the LOR over the last 2 years and our proposed formalization of an LMS in the future. 65% reported that new platform developments had made Skyline easy or very easy to use, up from 29% when Skyline was first launched. And 76% of respondents said that they would like to have their Google Classroom pre-populated with Skyline content in the future.
I do have a question. You mentioned online learning programs for students with disabilities that it faces the parents that they can access. Do you know how that information about those resources gets distributed?
I'm not familiar, but I can find out. We can share it with the board
Great.
after this.
Thank
meeting.
you.
Yep. Other questions?
Thank you. I appreciate you, maybe to be more direct. On Safari Montage in particular, there has been a lot of concern about its usability. And so one of the things I think I was very excited to hear about the direction that this is going is to have the Skyline content now be able to be used through Google Classroom. That sounds like a game changer considering how many of our educators are already using Google Classroom for their teaching. And so I was wondering, can you just say a little bit more about why we still need Safari Montage as the back end of that?
Yeah. So if you think about, I'm going to give you the example of in-house curriculum development, which we're doing right now to reduce the cost, make it more culturally responsive, allow teachers to really be involved in the development of curriculum. That means, for example, we are pulling images from different databases, videos from different databases, research articles from different databases, and we need a way to organize all of that material, ensure that we have the right data that's tracked, ensure that we have the right permissioning, that we're not using copyrighted materials in a way that we don't have the right to use it. And the LOR, the Learning Object Repository, was really built to do that. When we first launched Skyline, the discovery process that had happened before we built Skyline sort of indicated that the market was moving away from an LMS, a formal LMS platform. And so what we were trying to do was take advantage of the LOR capacity and then also use it as sort of a quasi LMS. And I think hybrid learning, our teachers' familiarity with Google Classroom, we've learned a lot since we launched it and are trying to pivot based on that learning.
Great, thank you. And not, I guess, just because you mentioned it, not directly on Safari Montage per se, but can you say more about how this will facilitate, in fact, greater teacher adaptation of the curriculum, how it will allow for more back and forth and teacher recommended or generated curricula to integrate with Skyline, considering so many of our schools are now using Skyline.
Absolutely. So the pre-population within the Google Classroom will make it easier for an individual teacher or teacher team to take those slides and easily edit them, customize them, and make them their own. The lore will then allow a teacher to feed that information back into the larger system so that our curriculum design team can again review for quality, review for general applicability, and review for copyright protection and permissioning, and then that can feed back into the system. So it's sort of a loop.
Great. Thank you. That's really helpful. I appreciate it. And I think it is being responsive to, the feedback that we heard. All right.
I have a question, and I'm not sure if it fits here, but it's definitely related to Skyline. I received some feedback from teachers asking about the possibility of doing more co-creating with curriculum and project-based between students and Skyline. And so is there an opportunity for that? It seems like some of this might be more traditional assessment and more project-based or hands-on problem-based curriculum design. So I'm just curious if there's space for that in the Skyline curriculum.
There's definitely space for that. We are currently designing units in social science, and we are working with teachers to help our curriculum design team directly design some of that and think through what is the vision for our social science curriculum in the future. We're also working with students through One Summer Chicago this summer for the first time to do that. They're not necessarily working on project-based units. We haven't determined what that looks like yet, but there is a huge opportunity. We really want to work with students to co-develop. We want to work with teachers to co-develop the curriculum.
Yeah, and I also want to lift up you working with teachers this summer and students to continue to improve on the curriculum and the opportunity. So I definitely want to commend you all for that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Moving on now, we are going to go to item 4. Authorize the first final renewal agreement with various vendors for universal screening, diagnostic, progress monitoring, assessment, and MTSS platform services.
Good morning, board members. My name is Peter Leonard, and I'm the Executive Director of Student Assessment and MTSS in the Office of Teaching and Learning. We're here to recommend the board renew the first and final renewal for screening, benchmark, and assessment services and MTSS platform. Our two vendors here are Renaissance Learning, provider of the STAR Assessment Suite, and Branching Minds, which provides the MTSS platform. This is for an amount not to exceed $14.1 million over the course of 3 years, split between the two vendors. You'll notice there are some cost savings here as the yearly projected spend for the 3-year duration is below the spend from the past couple years. So through those negotiations, those costs have gone down. You will notice that the MWE numbers do not hit targets. A couple things to say there. On the Renaissance Learning side, we are working with them to ensure that those targets are hit over the course of this agreement. On the Branching Minds side, we've learned through our process with them and that they have not successfully worked with a lot of their partners to obtain the certifications necessary for those items to be counted. So for example, 101 of their 244 professional learning sessions are 40% provided or by minority contractors, but who do not have the certification in order to be counted. So we're working with them to ensure that the certifications are obtained and that a plan is in place to meet these targets as well. Implications if the assessment and MTSS platform contracts are not approved, this and impacts schools' abilities to both implement their balanced assessment systems as well as support responsive planning to student needs in their MTSS processes, both of which are practice indicators in the CIDT policy. And I welcome any questions or comments the board members have.
Peter, I have a question. Can you say, because you have now been using both of these for a little while, can you, from your position, talk about why you think they are just, I guess, narratively, why you think these are good choices in terms of using Star 360 and using branching minds for the intended result at the school level.
Sure.
And also as something that's being provided by the district.
Great. So I'll start with Renaissance Learning and the STAR assessments. So the STAR assessments are available to our schools currently in 3rd through 12th grade. They're screening, benchmark, diagnostic, and progress monitoring assessments. So there's a suite of assessments, the first of which is a very quick, efficient kind of understanding of where students generally are in their learning. And that's really used for teams to determine which students may need additional supports and potentially interventions. There are additional components of the suite that allow you to get at more kind of diagnostic items. So you may be able to see that, hey, there's a student who's struggling with some concepts of math, but then I can really dig down deeper and say, this is a student who may need some help with 2-digit multiplication. So when, in addition to them getting their strong tier 1 instruction within an intervention block, I can work with them on some of those key skills that help shore up some of those foundations that continue to help them progress in their getting their tier 1 curriculum. The STAR assessments are available in both English and Spanish, so both Spanish math as well as Spanish reading, which has been really applicable for our dual language programs and within TBE programs as well. That assessment suite is not used for any system of accountability or opportunity. It is just for school teams to get quick, efficient information to supplement what they're getting from their curriculum to be responsive to students. On the MTSS platform side, this is the place where our teams really manage any interventions that they're providing to students. So it's a place where they can say, this set of students may be receiving an intervention, like I said, for 2-digit multiplication. It allows you to say that we're going to implement a 5-week plan. This is the responsible person who's providing it. Here are the targets for what we want to see at the end of the plan. It helps a team then assess over the course of their school which kids are receiving what, how well those interventions are working, and so they can continue a continuous improvement process along that realm. We've partnered this with a lot of the professional learning for teams, right? So academic interventionists who were in place at every school, funding for every school this year, as well as schools MTSS leads have been receiving a lot of learning and applied practice within professional learning communities to not just work within the system, but think about what does a holistic, responsive process look like at a school, and how does this platform fit in to you doing that better and better over time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
welcome.
All right, we will move on to item 5. Authorize the first, second, and third final renewal agreements with American Institutes for Research in the Behavioral Sciences, AIR, for school level needs assessment services.
Good morning,
Good
everyone,
morning.
and greetings. My name is Crystal Dorsey Turner. I am the Executive Director of School Supports in the Office of Network Support, and I am joined by Jeffrey Mosley, who is also the Deputy Chief of Elementary Schools. As you know, ISB gives annual designations to all schools: exemplary, commendable, targeted support, comprehensive support, or intensive support. And these can be found on the Illinois State Board of Education website. All schools that receive the designation of comprehensive and intensive support will receive ISB grant dollars for a required needs assessment during their year 1 of the designation, known as their planning year. ISB has determined that the American Institute of Research is the approved vendor for the required needs assessments. Schools that receive the lowest designations of targeted, comprehensive, and intensive support will receive grant dollars for 4 years to support continuous improvement toward receiving a commendable or exemplary designation at the end of the 4th year. When schools no longer receive these grant dollars, they will continue to receive support through their network offices, the school support department, and central office academic departments as needed. I would also like to acknowledge that we are addressing the board's concerns regarding what can be learned from AIR as it relates to the minority women business enterprises. Because this is exempt, we have continued to meet with AIR team bi-weekly, and we are approaching our first school debrief session. This will give us valuable insight into their data collection processes and reporting. Our CI team, continuous improvement team, is also involved in creating a crosswalk between how we document school improvement processes as well as AIR reporting. And additionally, I have conducted feedback sessions with school leaders to learn more about the process and what worked or did not work well for their school communities. Therefore, I stand before you today to request your authorization to enter into a 3-year renewal agreement with the American Institute of Research, known as AIR, for the tentative dollar amount of $4,157,754. The School and District Improvement Grant will cover the cost for each of the 3 years. The contract term will begin July 1, 2024 and end June 30th, 2027. During this 3-year renewal period, AIR will conduct a needs assessment for schools that have recently received an ISB designation of comprehensive or intensive based on their Illinois report card for SY24 through SY26 results. We currently have 42 intensive schools and 46 comprehensive schools, which are managed by the district. The vendor was selected based on a competitive process by which ISB and AIR entered into a master agreement. And according to Board Rule 7-4B, the school board is authorized to purchase non-biddable items based on contracts between another governmental entity and its respective vendors. A written agreement has been finalized between CPS and AIR, which was executed January 25th, 2024, and set to expire June 30th of this year. The needs assessment will support schools with more detailed information that can be used to support their school improvement efforts. This will include class observations, principal and staff surveys, interviews, and focus groups. ISB requires schools to work with AIR to conduct the needs assessment. Therefore, if we fail to execute this contract, we will not comply with the guidelines set forth by ISB regarding the School and District Improvement Grant. No services may be rendered or received, and no payment shall be made to any vendor before the execution of a written agreement. So again, thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Dorsey, for your
Right.
thorough presentation. We are good. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. We are going to move on with the following portfolio item. Item number 6, authorize the second final renewal agreement with Illinois Action for Children to provide support through the Universal Application Hotline.
Good morning, board members. I'm Sarah McPhee. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Access and Enrollment, and I'm here today to recommend that the board renew our Universal Application Hotline at the May 23rd board meeting. Through this contract, the Illinois Action for Children administers our parent-facing hotline for early childhood through high school application inquiries in the amount of $956,000. The contract term is from July 1, 2024 to June 30th, 2025. This is a single source contract, as Illinois Action for Children is the vendor designated by the city of Chicago as the entity that provides the shared hotline across both CPS and DFSS as our early childhood partners. The vendor has been a strong partner with us in our application work and providing a really valuable customer service to our families. They receive approximately 50,000 phone calls a year. In 2022, the hotline actually was only for the early childhood part of the process, but as we merged into Go CPS early childhood through high school in FY 2023, we also now have the one hotline across all of our processes. This is an increase for this upcoming year for FY 25 in order to be able to provide chat support for families, which is an increasing way that people like to interact with customer service teams, as well as trying to really make sure we're reducing our hold times and abandoned calls during our busy periods. This is, again, a really valuable customer service provider for our families so that they have a direct phone and now chat ability to reach out and receive support Monday through Friday throughout the year on our early childhood through high school processes. Thank you.
Yeah. So I noticed that the support is in English and Spanish. What happens for a family that doesn't speak Spanish? Are there other supports in place in the application process?
In the application process itself, we translate the Go CPS application into additional languages, but we do not have call support in additional languages.
I have a more of like logistical, probably in the weeds, so if you have to get back to you, please, it's okay. as a future early childhood parent as well, I went through the website and I did the application. It is unclear on like the local things. Would the hotline provide local information for parents who may be new? This is not my first time on the ride, but that may be unfamiliar with the local options that they have, the early learning programs and kind of like supports of the local information available.
And so could you clarify what?
Yeah, sorry. So in the process that, parents are maybe unclear when they reach out to Illinois Action for Children, who operates a hotline, right? Does the hotline folks have information on local information available? The early childhood placements of like, if this immediate one doesn't work, what are the other options? More of like the localized community information that would be readily available.
Sure, yeah. I mean, for the early childhood, they can provide support on, helping families with their address and sort of what is close by. Additionally, our Office of Early Childhood does outreach specifically to families, like for instance, families who are maybe on wait lists after offers go out to sort of to guide them to choices that might be available. So sort of more targeted outreach that our Office of Early Childhood embarks on after sort of the initial offers go out and trying to help families really get into a placement as soon as they can.
Do they also assist in once the folks have applied, families have applied, then calling them and being proactive in the process? So like folks are just like in the gray area wondering what's happening and what the process and the steps are.
So while you're on wait lists and just sort of additional outreach during that time, I'd have to check in with our Office of Early Childhood. I'm not sure if there's capacity on the hotline to do those kinds of calls, but I can check in with them and ask.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, board members, we will continue with the following health and wellness items, numbers 7 and 8, starting with item 7. Authorize commencement of the public comment period for Board Rule 6-21, corporal punishment and abusive conduct prohibited.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is Emma Lubing. I'm the Director of Civil Rights Compliance at the Office of Student Protection in Title IX. We're here today to ask the board to submit for public comment the amendments to the Board Rule 621, Corporal Punishment Prohibited, for eventual consideration at the July 25th, 2024 meeting. This is a rule revision that's covering vendors and volunteers in alignment with 105 ILCS 5-24-24 and a specific prohibition which is happening as part of our biannual review of all policies and rules, which revealed ambiguity in our regulations and practice. This board rule ensures that all adults in schools interacting with students are prohibited from engaging in verbally or physically abusive behavior or from using corporal punishment on students in violation of Illinois state law. There are no financial implications for this policy. If this is not approved, we may not be in alignment with the best practices regarding corporal punishment, physical abuse, and verbal abuse, or with Illinois state law. In terms of our equity focus, our focus was on fair policies and systems. So in school year 2018, which is the most recent year for which data is available, CPS accounted for the vast majority of incidents of corporal punishment in the state of Illinois. Those are reported to the Office for Civil Rights as part of their civil rights data collection. In CPS and throughout the United States, Black and brown students are statistically much more likely to be the victims of corporal punishment in school than their white peers. OSP's core mission is to ensure that all students are safe at school, and this rule puts all adults working with our students on notice that corporal punishment, abusive behavior, and abusive language will not be tolerated in our school system. In terms of engagement, we have so far engaged with the Law Department, with the Office of Equity, with the Office of Social and Emotional Learning, with the Office of Student Health and Wellness, the Principal Advisory Council, and one section of the Network 16 Social Services 215 class. We're also planning to engage with the Community Action Committee's Executive Leadership Committee, Family and Community Engagement, additional sections of Network 16 Social Services 215 class, the Parent Advisory Council / the Parent Leadership Network, and with the Student Voice Committee. Several stakeholders so far, including Equity, OSHW, and OSEL, have mentioned that a clear, concise statement on corporal punishment, physical abuse, and verbal abuse made them feel more comfortable as parents about their children's safety at CPS.
Thank you. Thank you. Questions?
Can you speak to the training that will be available specifically for parents, volunteers, and community volunteers?
So that's a really great question. So I think training at Chicago Public Schools is a little bit of a complicated issue, and this is something that's currently in progress. I won't say that it's fait accompli. So I've been working with partners in the law department, in talent, and across CPS and particularly at FACE. The volunteer policy is coming up to be amended, I believe, at the August board meeting. There is going to now be a required training component to that FACE is proposing. Working with FACE, what we've been talking about with OSP, FACE, and other groups is trying to create a training that is specifically aimed at volunteers. Especially for people like our level 2 volunteers, I don't think that any parent is going to be willing to go through 9 hours of training in order to go to a field trip to the zoo. But at the same time, those people are also mandated reporters where they need to know that, you can't hit kids. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone, but it puts everyone on notice. So we're going to try and roll something out, I believe, in the fall. I still need to get commitments from people. We're still working with stakeholders. In terms of our vendors, the law department has updated the contract for the upcoming fiscal year. We're still working on some of the operational and compliance pieces of that to ensure that everyone has completed all of the training pieces. We're still working to, define what our mandatory trainings really are. But starting on July 1st, all new vendor contracts. It's my understanding that those will include a provision that requires training for those people.
Thank you. Thank you. Follow-up question. How can we incorporate this as the end of the summer for recruitment of safe passage workers and through our student safety departments, and how are we wrapping it all in a blanket, like, making sure everybody's getting all of the new updates and trainings?
I mean, I think so.
And I know Jadine's if she wants to respond later on, that's fine, but just thinking about how all the components, right, that are going to be necessary for training.
Yeah, I think that that's an incredibly complicated piece. I don't have an easy answer to that one. I think that that's still work that is ongoing in incorporating all those things. I think in terms of the scope of this revision of this rule, I don't think that it changes anything that significantly, since we don't currently have a training that covers corporal punishment, for example, specifically. But I think it wraps into a larger issue of training at CPS that we're continuing to work on, and we're happy to update the board with everything as it happens and as we know more about how it'll work.
Thank you. I'd love to hear how we're prioritizing certain trainings over others, especially those that have significantly affected higher numbers for Chicago Public School students.
Yeah, I think, well, that's a great point. And I think, again, this is something that we're still trying to determine, working with law and with other stakeholders. Some of our trainings have absolutely very different impacts. So for example, like our mandated reporter training is something that is essential for every single adult who walks into a building. Every single person who comes in who sees something happening is a mandated reporter in that building. Whereas, we have other trainings that might not be legally required. That's not something that has been a traditional ask of CPS departments when requiring something and calling something mandatory training. So again, I think we're working with chiefs. We're trying to hold some roundtables that are going to be forthcoming to try and discuss those issues and try and determine what is mandatory training and how do we ensure that everyone gets both what's legally required and what's in the best interest of all CPS students.
Thank you. And for efficiency, just to, and I know this is probably, beyond, you can let me know if that's beyond your department. Just the intentionalness of wrapping it into what's already in place. Like, can we add it into the mandatory trainings? Like, how can we just, incorporate it instead of recreating the wheels?
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And that's something certainly we'll discuss internally, and I will bring back to all of the teams I speak with to see how we can incorporate that, because that's a great point.
Thank you.
Just quickly, and maybe this sort of touches on what you just said, but I think in terms of the rule change itself, thinking about more, and I think this is what you said you were going to do, how this fits in with the other related rules related to discipline and other policies is one sort of set of concerns. And then I guess the other one, which I think you've said more about than perhaps what we saw in the materials, is around stakeholder engagement. So it sounds like you did a lot of work on the internal side, but even while this is out for public comment, there will be ongoing touch points with other groups, students, as well as others, to get feedback to potentially change. And part of this is because I didn't see sort of large substantive changes in the rule, and maybe there won't end up being, but to just make sure that all those different impacted stakeholder groups have an opportunity for that feedback. So it sounds like it'll be parallel. Is that?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the concerns you're hearing is about implementation, and to get an update later on around how this is going to be implemented. I also hope that in addition to the stakeholder groups that Vice President Todd Breland mentioned, also volunteers and parents are included. Understanding, right, the need to, have now parent volunteers go through background checks and all of those things to be in the building, so the safety is measured, but also, right, barriers and that are being created that are also limiting parent volunteers from volunteering for field trips and things like that. So hopefully they're included as well, so that as we're thinking about the implementation, we're not adding on multiple barriers.
Yeah, I think that when FACE brings the volunteer policy, I think they've worked really hard to do that and to engage those different groups as well. And I know it's not directly related to this rule change, but hopefully they'll have some figures that they can share with you then, because they've done some really impressive engagement around this issue.
Thank you.
All right.
My comment is echoes both Vice President Todd Breland and Board Member Morales in that that engagement is something that we often see. I'm often daunted by the fact that there are over 300,000 students and their families that we serve. And yet oftentimes I'm saddened by the amount of engagement that we have when we count the numbers of families, community members that we actually have engaged in either roundtables or surveys. And so I'm very interested in that kind of report back, because this is public comment. And we say that this is what it is, but when we don't actually get the comments from the people who are closest to these issues, then I often wonder, are we really hearing from the folks that are being impacted? And all too often we hear from community members who say, I didn't know where to go to lodge my feedback or to give comments, or, it already seems like it's a runaway train without my comments. So I hope that we are sensitive to the fact that this is a very, very sensitive policy that is going to impact so many different people on a very personal level, that we're doing all that we can and more to ensure that as many voices are heard as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, we are going to move on to item 8, authorize commencement of the public comment period for the new policy on comprehensive student substance use prevention and intervention K through 12.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Tara DiClemente. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Student Health and Wellness. We are recommending the board to rescind the current policy and authorize for public comment the proposed comprehensive student substance use policy. The current policy is from 1988 and is out of date with current best practices. The new policy will be in compliance with Illinois laws, ISB standards, and best practice strategies for prevention education, student substance use intervention, and school opioid intervention procedures. This policy will go into effect in time for next school year, and there are no financial implications. If this amendment is not approved, we will not establish guidance for medical emergencies related to substance use. This policy is whole child-centered, as evidenced by the harm reduction and restorative approach the policy embodies, which includes the shift in language from substance abuse to substance use. This policy is designed to support equity-centered, fair policies and systems through establishing universal guidance for comprehensive, universal approaches to substance use prevention, education, and intervention. This policy was developed through interdisciplinary collaboration across many departments, including but not limited to the Office of Social and Emotional Learning and the Office of Safety and Security.
Any questions?
Yeah, just, if you could, just walk through, this might be a little bit weedy, like what, I noticed opioids, so like what are the best practices that aren't included currently? Is it because there are now, since 1988, different substances that, you know, are being used and different medical interventions?
Yeah, so it's really, the former policy is missing anything about prevention or education. And so there's obviously been many state laws, but also our Office of Teaching and Learning has made great strides in comprehensive health education, including substance use prevention education. So it's including all of that. It's also complementary to our mental health policy, which passed in 2022, as well as the updates that have been made to the Student Code of Conduct, the Crisis Manual, the Student Bill of Rights. So it's really about bringing it all together to talk about, to really address that substance use is sometimes the cause of mental health issues and sometimes can lead to. And so it's really trying to show students, families, community, that we understand that there's more to this than just a discipline approach. And we really outline that throughout the different sections of the policy.
Thank you. Thank you. I too appreciate that shift. Okay. If there are no other questions, we will move on to item 9. Board members, we're going to continue with the following safety and security items, numbers 9 and 10. We'll start with 9, authorize the commencement of the public comment period for the whole school safety framework policy.
Good morning, everyone. My
morning.
name is Shadeen Chow. I'm the Chief of Safety and Security. I'm joined here this morning by my colleague, Kylie Kosmachek, who is the Director of Safety Operations. Before I turn it over to her, just a quick introduction to what we're about to talk about. As you all are very aware, this has been a journey. Next week at the board meeting, we hope to be able to present a more in-depth conversation around whole school safety and the policy we're seeking to begin public comment for. I do want to share that we will be joined by our partners from the Whole School Safety Steering Committee, consisting of community-based organizations who've been working with us on this since 2020. And so they will be here next week. In the meantime, wanted to give you a preview of the day, and so I'm going to turn it over to Kylie to share what we're seeking on this board report.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We are here today to rescind the social emotional health policy in collaboration with OSEL, as we have embedded those components in this whole school safety draft policy. We are also here to seek your authorization of the new whole school safety draft policy to be published for public comment. As you may recall, this policy was being developed in response to a resolution passed in February of 2024. The whole school safety framework encompasses 3 pillars of holistic safety: physical safety, emotional safety, and relational trust, which drives the development of a holistically safe environment. A variety of engagement strategies have been held in the capacity of town halls with parents, students, community members, and our labor partners, including LSCs, SEIU, and CTU. A public survey was also distributed, which received over 9,000 responses to this policy, and which also helped us develop this draft that we are going to be putting before you. The policy is designed to support equity-centered, fair policies through establishing universal guidance for comprehensive, universal, holistic safety support in schools. We continue to work closely with our partners in OSEL, other CPS departments, and our whole school steering committee, which includes our community-based organization partners. They have helped us a whole lot in the development of this policy, as well as the complementary implementation guide that we are developing to guide both administrators, parents, and students on this process. We are looking to have this policy along with the whole school implementation guide ready to go this summer, so schools can begin planning for the fall. Any questions?
I just want to applaud the work that has been done by your department and the community-based organizations to really make a shift here from a disciplinary perspective to a more dreaming and healing-centered equity frame for students, and how we view students in buildings and in the classroom. So this is really just a long time coming, and thank you for your efforts, comments.
I too want to just thank you and thank you for all the thoughtfulness. Jadine, thank you. Like, I know, I understand. It's been a long journey and I can't thank you enough, like hug. For, you know, all your efforts, all of your deep commitment to making sure that the safety of our schools is being done in a 2024 manner. And so, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I just very briefly. I too want to say thank you. I know this has not always been a very easy road. It is the culmination of a lot of folks' work who's not in this room, who's not even within earshot or even viewing. It is also the work, we stand on the shoulders of so many giants that have come before us to lay forth this path. As one of the Black members of this board, it is my privilege and my honor to be here at this moment in time while we are doing this work together. I know that there can often be misunderstandings about the work. There can often be messaging about the work, but I certainly feel hopeful. I feel joyful in many ways that what will come out of this is a direction that we can all see, that parents and families who feel as though they have been furthest away from feeling whole and feeling safe will begin to see a new path forward. And so I'm very encouraged and want to thank you also for your hard work and that of your team that stands behind you.
Thank you. I too appreciate the thoughtful approach and, you know, this district-wide shift to thinking about emotional safety, physical safety, and relational trust. I do have a kind of question, comment, I guess. Can you just say more about how whole school safety is going to be integrated within and complement existing school level decision-making bodies at all of our buildings so that so that there's an understanding that this is going to complement things that are already going on in schools in terms of who's doing the work and who's being brought together, and also maybe adding some people to those bodies.
No, thank you. Before I answer that, I just want to thank all the board members. You all, I hope you've seen the first draft is very different from the final draft that we will be presenting for public comment. That really comes as a result of listening to all of you, but also to our stakeholders. And I love the comments that you made earlier about really centering those, our students especially, who are most affected by these kinds of policies. So I just wanted to say that. In answering your questions, we really, as part of this journey, wanted to be thoughtful that this wasn't just going to be a policy on paper, that this was about implementation, and that this was something that was going to stick ideally for years to come. And so what we want to do is make sure we're phasing this in a tiered approach. And so that starts with a baseline assessment. Again, we'll talk more about this next week, but a baseline assessment in working with our community partners and our stakeholders like parents and students to make sure that we're understanding their needs so that they can, again, be a part of creating this with us. This is not a district thing alone. And so also with the tiered approach, it becomes sustainable. One of our themes on our committee is if we co-own it, we protect it. And by doing so, and again, for those of you from the community organizations, you know that theme is not just a slogan, it's a reality. And what we've seen since 2020, the evolution of schools coming on board. I think this is sort of the nudge that we need to get more of the schools on board. And we're already hearing, as we are doing more engagement with our school leaders, that they want to be a part of this. And so I think that's how we're going to bring more people on board. But it comes with, and I heard a lot about the training, it's going to come a lot with the training and not just presenting this. It's about a different kind of training where we're actually participating so that we're all learning together. It's a 360-degree experience. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Someone say thank you again for everybody's support. We're going to make it. We're going to be fine. Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, we're going to move on to item 10, authorize the second final renewal agreement with various vendors for Back to Our Future services.
switching gears, still safety and security. We have a second board report before you. I'm joined by my colleague, Tony Copeland, who is the Director of Violence Prevention and Student Supports for the Office of Safety and Security. I'm very proud of this project. Tony has done an amazing job of leading this effort. It started in the fall of 2022 as a very ambitious pilot. And she'll talk through sort of where we want to go now and where we'll be going very shortly in the future. I'm gonna turn it over to Tony.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As Jadine stated, Back to Our Future is our current re-engagement strategy through the Office of School Safety and Security. The idea was birthed out of a partnership with IDHS, along with 3 community-based organizations that support our work on ground. It was also designed as a call to an issue that we see across the city in terms of violence, as we know that 90% of youth that are victims or perpetrators of violence are not connected to school at the time of incident. We are seeking to exercise our second and final renewal as we are in the wind down phase of the first iteration of Back to Our Future. The first iteration of Back to Our Future was supported largely by the state. And so that was under a grant that is set to sunset June 30, 2024. And because of that, we will have a group of students who are still in the program. Back to Our Future is 9 to 12 months, and we want to make sure that every student that is consented to the program has the full array of services. And so we want to add to our not to exceed amount so that we can add philanthropic funds to the current contract so that we could see the remaining students through the end of the program. Through Back to Our Future, we have been able to perform outreach to over 3,000 disengaged students throughout the city of Chicago. 588 of them were consented successfully into the program. And 83% of those have logged programming hours within the program, and 47% of that 83% have met the program milestone of having at least 240 programming hours. Some good highlights for the program and some success highlights are about 110 youth have been reconnected or re-enrolled back into school since participating in the program. At least 33 of them have met their graduation requirements while being enrolled in the program. And so they will receive their diploma through Back to Our Future. And then again, there's approximately 260 youth or so that still remain in the program, and we want to see them through even after the grant funds end.
Questions? My only question was the increase in the dollar amount, and if you could speak to, I mean, you mentioned it briefly about other funding sources, but if you could talk about the services or the increase in the dollar amount.
So it's not necessarily an increase in the dollar amount because we're scaling the program in any particular way. It's just to cover or backfill what will end underneath the state's coverage June 30. So even though the state funds are ending, we still have to pay out different things that are attached to the program for student supports in order for the remaining students to finish out in the 12 months.
Thank you.
This sounds also like another amazing program, so thank you for the work on this. My question is, once the final year of funding happens, what's gonna happen after this? Are we gonna continue it another way? Okay, good.
So we are currently in partnership with the mayor's office. I sit and lead the education pillar within the People's Plan for Community Safety, where we're specifically targeting re-engagement as a strategy for violence reduction. And our main project in my pillar is to reimagine Back to Our Future, and we're going to have a second iteration, so Back to Our Future 2.0. So through, again, partnership with philanthropy, the mayor's office, and then hopefully also some additional state support, we'll be able to implement a second iteration of the program.
That's great to hear. And then one last question I have, is the program also support the graduates once they graduate, or is there a transition to the workforce to 2-year, 4-year, post-secondary?
Yeah, so there we do have post Back to Our Future support for youth. We like to say with majority of the programming that we have under safety and security, the kids never go away. Once they're discharged from programming, our community-based organizations are really great in what we call alumni supports and making sure that we support both the families and the youth participants, whether that be through transitional jobs, connecting them to additional resources within community, and then also just providing a safe space for them to continue to connect back to mentorship that they've had so that we could continue to see some of the successes that we had while they were in programming.
Thank you. Great.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Okay, board members, we are going to continue now with the following financial items, items 11 and 12, and start with item 11, Chapter 5 Board Rules.
Good morning, board members. I'm Patrick Alforque. I'm the controller from the finance office. We are recommending that the board amend Board Rules Chapter 5 Financial Rules. Financial rules includes 15 sections. 3 of those are being rescinded and 12 are recommended for readoption. The sections that are being rescinded are rescinded because they are already covered in other board rules or policies. The basis for this recommendation is Board Rule 2-6, which requires readoption of rules biennially every other year. Not adopting these amended rules will not be in compliance with the same board rule. These board rules are also amended to provide clarity and also to update some sections that are no longer updated. During the review of this board rules, we consulted with LSC Advisory Board, Law Department, Equity Office, Board Office, CEDO, Office of the Portfolio Management Phase, and OSHW. These board rules were posted for public comment from March 22nd to April 22nd of this year. We received comments from 2 individuals. Those comments were specific to about 8 of the sections. Based on the comments received, there are no changes needed on the draft amendments.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 12. Authorized placement of the board's FY 2025 excess liability, property, and specialty insurance programs with various insurance companies through Mesero Insurance Services, Inc.
Hi, hello, everybody. Wally Stock, the District Treasurer and Deputy CFO. And so we're recommending that the board approve the authorization and the placement of the fiscal year 2025 insurance program, as you called out in the title. It is for all those various insurance items, except we don't have employee benefits like health insurance in there. So it's everything else that we have to basically look at to help protect our financial interests. This year, we're asking for an amount not to exceed $19 million. And I want to point out that this is not a procurement item, but we utilize the service of an insurance broker, Mesero Insurance Services, and they were picked by a procurement process. And they also, they receive a flat fee for what it is that they do for the placement, and they adhere to our procurement rules with MWBE participation. But generally, we must use a broker to access the markets that we need to, get into in order to buy our insurance. I can't call State Farm or Allstate to get insurance. It's a much more sophisticated problem that we deal with. And generally, we start this annual insurance process right after the first of the calendar year. And the goal is to try to get the insurance in place by the time our fiscal year starts. So we have to have this insurance in place by 7/1/24 in order to have for the fiscal year 25 insurance coverages. So there's about 20 or so policies that we need to purchase. Many things are complicated, like in our property insurance, we have towers of different companies that come in and take percentages. So It takes quite a long time to kind of navigate that and kind of explain the application and the risk and then get people to come back in and kind of find the best pricing. So we're in the process of doing that, and we're hoping that in some cases, some of the policies, we're pushing really hard to try to keep the prices flat. But there's a lot of external factors that are out there. We all hear on the news about floods and fires and tornadoes and catastrophes. And thankfully, while we haven't had any major issues like that in Chicago, they still affect the pricing because those carriers also have exposure in those areas. So but we're pushing very hard to try to keep some of the policies flat. We also know that in the terms of like the liability insurance that we have, which covers a lot of unfortunate things that happen throughout the district, if there's any kind of death or any kind of injury or any other litigation, you know, we have a list of things that we're always rigorously defending and trying to mitigate. But the combination of that plus other external factors that we also see out there in the market also make that policy sometimes kind of difficult to keep flat. But we're doing our best to do that, and we're very conscious of the expense and trying to reduce it where we can. So yeah, I don't know if you have any questions on it, but you know, it's where we're at in the process, and with your authorization, we'll get into the market and try to secure the policies.
Get out there, Wally. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate your support.
All right, we will move on to the following internal audit item, item number 13. Authorize the commencement of the public comment period for the new internal control monitoring policy.
Good afternoon. My name is Shelley Banks. I'm the Chief Internal Auditor here at CPS. We are recommending the board to approve for public comment, rescinding the current financial supervision policy and adopting a new internal control policy named internal control monitoring. The prior policy focused on disciplinary actions around violations on internal accounts with no structure, responsibility, tracking, or enforcement around the policy. The new policy takes a more collaborative approach to instituting internal controls within the organization to ensure risks are managed, assets are protected, and organizational objectives achieved. The policy defines internal controls, the audit process, the management correction action plan process, and as well as the escalation process when there are deficiencies as far as involving the OIG office, law office, OSP, and OSS. It also establishes an annual internal control certification process. There are no financial implications to this policy. If not approved, it limits establishing clear guidelines on the importance of internal controls, which can lead to higher risk of fraud, mismanagement, asset loss, financial loss, reputational damage, inefficiencies, and such. The blueprint areas, academic progress and operational excellence, are supported through focusing on a strong internal control process, which helps achieve these goals and objectives. In addition, it supports building trust through having a stronger internal control system. We have integrity in our processes. It's in alignment with the CPS equity framework for fair policies and systems. The old policy had a disparaging language and focused just on schools, where the new policy is a district-wide policy on having a collaborative approach to internal controls. The policy went through the stakeholder review process, so it involved equity, FACE, student health and wellness, the law, board staff. In addition, we also engaged network support staff. We engaged the finance office. We engaged the OIG office. We also shared this with the risk management committee. We also engaged external feedback from our audit vendor pool. We also shared it through the Council of the Great City Schools and the Chief Auditor Forum for any feedback. So I'll open up to any questions.
Can you say, I guess, your hopes for how this shift from a more punitive approach to a more collaborative approach will be felt by those most impacted by that shift?
Sure. So the remedial measures and stuff that were still in the old policy are still really part of the new policy, because how it involves is through the management corrective action plan tracking. So if there are internal control deficiencies, we would develop a management corrective action plan. And so there's more, substance around it. There's more tracking and reporting around it than there was in the past.
Okay. Rather than just you're in trouble.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. All right, we will move on if there aren't any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will move on, board members, to continue with the following information and technology items, numbers 14 through 18. And we're going to start with 14. 14, authorize the extension of the agreement with CDW Government LLC for the purchase of audiovisual and interactive whiteboard equipment.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Valente. I'm the Facility Automation Architect for Chicago Public Schools. I'm joined with Norm and Ed from the Information Technology Department. We're here to recommend for the board to approve the extension of the Piggyback Omnia contract that we're currently leveraging for the category award of the audiovisual and interactive whiteboard agreement that currently resides with CDWG. This extension for this particular contract provides all sorts of audiovisual equipment, interactive whiteboards, interactive televisions, projectors, and all the associated installation services around that, along with consumable items such as like light bulbs that go into the projectors and all the other things of that nature. This contract primarily serves the school business units, network offices, and central office and satellite offices. We recommend proceeding with this agreement as it'll provide the district with the ability to purchase this technology from a competitively bid vendor with no off-contract spend limitations. We are meeting the board's requirement for MEB and WEB participation with 30 and 7. The start date is July 1st of 2024, and this would go through February 28th of 2025. The reason for the short version of the contract is we're actually going to be going out to RFP for category award to see if we can solicit for a better contractual rate for this particular content area. The proposed spend for this contract is $10 million as a not to exceed. This is based on historical spend at the business units, central office, and network offices. Primarily, most of the spend is done by the school units. If this contract is not approved, the district would be left with no means to strategically source audio and visual technology, which is essential to the education of our students and collaboration within the district. And then they would be forced to abide by normal contract vendors and be capped at a $25,000 spend limit. And most likely also pay higher rates than the negotiated ones that are in this contract. This aligns to the CPS's blueprint by providing financial stability and operational excellence. And then the equity focus here is for resource equality, so that every school, regardless of purchasing power, has equal access to the technology at a consistent price. The key performance indicators that we use for the contract are the percentage of products delivered within the agreed timeframe and the percentage of installations free of defects.
I had a question relative to what seemed to be the irregular contract time, and you were saying it's because you plan to go back out to market. I guess related to that, this would be a kind of significant increase in spend for that shorter period if this year presumably was a full year. Can you explain why that increase has happened, and is that the reason why the plan is to go out to market?
That is not tied to the reason for it to go out to market, but the increase in spend, our FY24 spend was basically right at $10 million. So we figured that 10 million would be a safe amount going in, especially with enhanced budgeting at the school level, redistribution. And then it's not a guarantee of spend of 10 million. It's just it's a not to exceed amount.
Got it. And maybe I guess more specifically, like, are we still getting all of our schools and classrooms whiteboards and AVs? Is this mainly replacement? Is it, what is the scope?
This is not for anybody to distribute the equipment out. This is a procurement method for schools to be able to purchase.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will move forward with item 15. Authorize the second final renewal agreement with various vendors for field support services.
Good morning.
Hi. Good morning.
I'm Deborah Price, Executive Director of ITS Tech Support Services. And this is Angela Hanlon, my colleague. She is the ITS Director of Shared Services.
Greetings. I stand before you today requesting the authorization of the second and final renewal for field support services with 5 vendors who provide break-fix support, maintenance of school devices, and other related technical support services. The focus of the agreement is to provide equitable access to cost-effective tech support services. For the past 2 years, ITS has offered all schools district-funded weekly or bi-weekly support visits from their assigned vendor teams. Due to the budget deficit, the funds for our district-funded program have been reduced for the upcoming school year. However, ITS is committed to providing some district-funded support hours. Those schools who cannot afford a TECO resource will receive a baseline of 4 hours a week. And all schools with or without a TECO designee will continue to have the option to contract directly with their FSS vendor team if needed, by issuing a school-issued purchase order for tech support services. I'll open it up for questions.
Well, I just want to comment, kudos on the minority and women-owned businesses here. This is quite the feat. So good work.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. We're very proud of that.
Gotta underscore and +1 that one.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We will move on now to item 16. Authorize the extension of the agreement with UKG Chronos Systems LLC for software and hardware maintenance.
Good afternoon.
Good
My name is Craig Swanton, and I'm the Director of HRIT. We are recommending the board to authorize a 2-year extension to the existing contract, for software and hardware support and maintenance with UKG Chronos LLC. The Chronos timekeeping system is used to manage employee tracking throughout the district, and it's an integral part of the payroll processing system. In addition to the software and hardware maintenance costs, they do not exceed amount of $50,000 per year has been included to allow for additional license and clock purchases as may be required in the event of an employee increasing or new location build outs, which amounts to a total of $1,120,711 for the 2 years. The year-over-year comparison also reflects an increase in the number of licenses needed due to an increase in the number of employees and the expansion of the use of Chronos to additional groups such as student interns. This extension will allow the time to provide a future timekeeping system as part of the program bridge. If not approved, the district would lose the ability to use its timekeeping system, which, as mentioned already, is an integral part of the payroll system. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on now to items 17 and 18. I would ask maybe we could speak over both and then we'll ask questions. The first is authorize the annual renewal agreement with Oracle America, Inc. for licensing and support for Oracle Enterprise Financial Systems. And 18, authorize the extension of the agreement with Mythix LLC for Oracle infrastructure upgrades.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Prakash Mopada, Oracle EFS Director, Information Technology Services, along with my Deputy CIO, Ed Wagner. So we are recommending the board to authorize annual renewal of software license support, Oracle Financial System, PeopleSoft, Human Resource System, related services of Oracle America, Inc., not to exceed amount $4.7 million for FY25. This is the first of the 2 board reports. This one is for the software license and support, while the second one is the hosting our system and Oracle infrastructure. So these 2 board reports are covers existing ERP systems, which will be replaced with the new cloud ERP system. Once system is implemented, these contracts no longer needed. Both Oracle Financial System, PeopleSoft, Human Resource are covered under the current license support. District covers finance systems management, including general ledger, procurement, procurements, accounts payable, account receivable, project accounting, PeopleSoft, business intelligence, position control, HR system must be patched, upgraded to frequently. This contract allows district to obtain install these patches, software upgrades, as well as call in support for these any issues. Renewal of this maintenance contract allows CPS obtain secure real-time access to Oracle experts on the completing the software environment. They also provide personalized proactive support capabilities that helps reduce the unplanned downtime, improve system stability. The equity focus for this board report is resource equity. Every school and department will have equal access for our financial system and talent management system. Additionally, this system allows track reporting financial data, HR data, which will ensure that resources are allocated fairly, equitably across all schools. If this is not approved, district will not able to call in support if they have any issues. This will be significant risk for the unsupported ERP system.
You mentioned some of 18 with this one. Did you want to say more about item 18 as well, or?
Yeah, I have
Okay,
it.
go ahead.
So second one is our hosting solution. That's the software dispersing solution. We are recommending like a board authorized annual renewal for the host cloud hosting platform, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure OCI, for the 2 enterprise ERP systems, Business Suite and PeopleSoft Kronos hosting. Related services with the Matrix LLC is not to exceed amount cost $3.5 million per year 2025 term. So second board report is following our system cloud infrastructure OCI. The contract provides full supported servers from Matrix, Oracle and Oracle both combination, and that system resides on. Ensuring availability, stability of our core district finance systems. In addition, redundancy is built into the engineered system to allow automatically failover to the disaster recovery site in case of major system or data center issues. So renewal of this cloud hosting contract offers secured access, high availability, high performance, real-time CPS monitoring for all the CPS district. They also provide personalized proactive support activity that helps reduce unplanned downtime, improve system stability. And the equity focus of this board report also resource equality. Every school, every district will have the same access, well-maintained financial system, talent system. Additionally, the system allows tracking the reporting financial HR data, which will ensure that resources are allocated fairly to across all the school districts.
I had a question. This is actually not about this per se, but it mentions on item 18 that the product was sourced through the Cooperative Purchasing Network for Public Schools. What is that? Is that, I'm just curious, is that like just, is that a network just around IT systems, or is it a broader?
It's a piggyback agreement.
Okay.
Yeah.
National consortium that we use, like Omnia Sourcewell.
Got it.
Sourcewell, and there's a TCPN.
Okay.
I think they're out of.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
saying.
Just curious. Thank you. That's my only question here. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's move on, board members. We are going to continue with the following nutrition item. Item 19, authorize the second renewal agreement with various vendors for food management services.
Good afternoon, board members.
Good afternoon.
My name is Jason Mojica, and I'm the Executive Director with Nutrition Support Services. We are recommending the board to authorize the second renewal agreement for food service management services at all of our schools. This is to provide meals for all students under the National School Breakfast and Lunch programs. We are currently working with both vendors to increase food quality, meal participation, and variety through various avenues, such as student tastings, offering limited time offers, and student engagement. The implications if the agreement is not approved is we will not be able to provide meals to our students. Our blueprint connection is that we support academic progress and operational excellence. Our equity focus is nutritious, free school meals that support academic success and positive health outcomes. Our key performance indicators are increasing meal participation and meal program compliance and accountability. We're requesting a not to exceed amount of $110 million for the contract term of July 1, 2024 through June 30th of 2025. With both of our vendors, Aramark and Open Kitchens, We are exceeding the MeBe goals with Aramark at 79% for MeBe and Open Kitchens at 100% for Weeby. They're 100% women-owned business. To further support the basis for the recommendation, I would like to share some data with you guys. So meal participation, so this year, our breakfast participation is currently at 34% compared to last year at 32%. And our lunch participation is at 58% compared to prior year at 56%. On top of that, I want to share some numbers that pre-pandemic, we were averaging 38% for breakfast and 63% for lunch, which is a total of 51% overall participation. And that was with nearly 40,000 more students pre-pandemic. This year, we're at a total of 46% overall participation, given that this is with 40,000 less students. I'm also proud to say that this year we launched a school food survey, and we received well over 45,000 responses, a 380% increase from prior year. 33,000 of those responses were from students, over 12,000 were from parents. So we are currently working right now with a third party to collate the data that we hope we can share with you guys in the next coming weeks. We're also continuing our pilot program of scratch cooking, where we are having schools prepare meals from scratch with more raw ingredients. We have also piloted a bulk hot program at one of our pre-plated schools, where we invested and bought a serving line and changed out some of the equipment. And now the food is coming in bulk. They heat it up and we're serving it. And at that school, we increased our participation this year from an average of 200 meals at lunch to over 500 at lunch. So we're really proud about that. And we are also working on food court pilots too. So hopefully over the summer, Michelle Clark will be our first school that we will have a food court style service area on one of the sides of the dining room. So we're very happy about that. We are also continuing our chef residency and council program. So I'm pleased to say that we will be working with Josephine Mother Wade this year, and she will be helping us to create some recipes that will be featured on our menus. We are also continuing our halal and kosher program, which is working well at our 5 pilot schools. And long-term, we're looking at actually certifying these sites as halal kitchens. So we're working with external partners on that process as well. And that is it. Open to any questions.
Hey, I have a question for the sake of the opportunity for food preservation. There's a lot of food that sometimes does not get eaten by the students, gets just immediately tossed out. What are some of the measures that the district is taking to reduce that waste in food, to find alternatives of, for the consuming of that food? And 3, offering maybe things like having a cook, available per district, are there cost saving measures there so that we can actually have meals that students will eat? As a parent, I always ask, what was for, lunch today? Just out of curiosity. And she's like, that's disgusting. I did not eat that. And it just, every day I'm like, okay, so all this food is going where? And how are we making up for that cost saving measures? And then the spices available, maybe, the healthy options. I know you have here student engagement first tastings. Which regions, especially for our students that are used to a lot of the spices in their meals, that makes it a little bit more pleasing for their taste buds. What are some of the things that you all are working on for that?
Sure. So to answer your first question around food waste, we do a couple of things. So we have what's called share tables that we implement at schools that want to follow that, where We put bins in the dining rooms, and any items that are unconsumed that are okay to allow other students to get, we offer that at our lunchrooms. The other thing that we do is we try to train our staff as far as what we call batch cooking, right? To prepare just enough that's needed for every meal period, right? As far as cooking goes, I'd say the majority of our schools do have cooks. We have about 100 or so schools that those are the receiving kitchens, and so that's a different model where they receive the food that's in modular meals, right? That's through open kitchens, but we're having a lot of success with menu variety in that aspect as well. So, and then as far as spices go, so we're always working with both vendors as far as seasonings go. The USDA just released yet again some more nutrition guidelines that we have to review those and see how they're going to apply to the meal program. But I'm proud to say that internally we have our own health and wellness policy that sometimes meets and or exceeds the USDA regulations, but we're always looking at trying to incorporate flavor into the food without adding salt, fat, or sugar.
Thank you for that. I'd be curious if you want to share when you're implementing some of those student tasting, like some of that information that comes out of there. I know you mentioned for the schools that have that option, like instead of it being optional to put food that's not being consumed in a basket, like, can we just do it across the board as a requirement so that this food doesn't go to waste when we have so many people across the city of Chicago that go unfed?
We're actually working on right now. We just started having the conversations with facilities and some other partners around composting. So it's one of those things too, where we're going to look at creating a comprehensive program around food waste and how we can incorporate that and compost that into our schools. And then as far as the tastings go, we do these across the district. So we try and hit various demographics across the district. On top of that, we have food focus committees that are comprised of students that we meet with quarterly. And they give us feedback as far as, the menu items, and then we adjust and pivot as necessary.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
No questions, just comments. I want to applaud lift up the scratch cooking, the halal kosher program, the food court at Michelle Clark. Can't wait to head over there and start eating and visit them next year. And all the things that you all are really doing to try to address some of the things that my fellow board members address. And all of us having kids that matriculated through CPS then and now, it really says a lot about taking seriously the concerns and the needs of students and of their families. And I just continue to look forward to scaling this in a big way so that one day we'll be able to say all kids are like, oh, I can't wait to eat the food at school today.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I guess I would just also wanted to add, look, everybody cares about food, right? The fact that you got 45,000, was it, responses to your survey lets us know that. I know my household was part of that. And because they were like, let me tell you, okay, we'll put it on the survey.
Mhm.
So, and I would say to board members, like, we can visit these tastings as well if you're interested.
Definitely invite you
But
guys.
I was wondering, I just want to say, I look forward to hearing more about what you feel like is feedback from the survey that we can then actually try to implement in some way to be responsive to that feedback once you do that assessment. And then finally, to just think moving forward, would love to hear more, not necessarily today, but about your ideas and planning around capacity for scaling these various pilots that
Mhm.
sound like they've been very successful over time. So thank
Be
you.
happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so board members, we are going to continue with the following capital item. Number 20, authorize the third renewal of the lease agreement with Highland Avondale Properties LLC for the use of office space at 6323 North Avondale Avenue.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Steven Stoltz, Director of Real Estate for the Facilities and Capital Department. We recommend the board authorize the renewal of the lease agreement with Highland Avondale Properties LLC to permit the continued use of office space in the building located at 6323 North Avondale Avenue. The property is used as administrative offices by Networks 1, 2, and 4, and they occupy suites B 226, 228, 229, 232, 235, 236, and 242, consisting of approximately 13,469 square feet of office space. We are seeking to exercise the option to extend the term of the agreement for 1 year, commencing on September 1st, 2024 through August 30th, 2025. I'm sorry, August 31st of 2025. This is the last renewal option for this lease. If approved, base rent will increase by 3% to $256,936 per year, payable in equal monthly installments, and the board will be responsible for reimbursing the landlord for real estate taxes and common area maintenance, which are estimated to be $138,500 for the year. We are seeking a short 1-year renewal while we explore the feasibility of relocating the network offices to a site that is owned by the district in order to better utilize our existing real estate portfolio while also reducing leasing expenses. The site we are exploring is located adjacent to Disney 2 High School, and it was a former rectory building. The Disney 2 High School is a site we acquired from the Archdiocese, and the rectory building is unoccupied at this time. This would result in a location that is a lot closer to Networks 2 and 4. Currently, the offices are on the far west side of Network 1. It's quite a distance from Networks 2 and 4. So this would, if this relocation option works, the new site will be a lot closer to Networks 2 and 4, but will still remain within the Network 1 geographic area. That concludes my presentation for this item, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I was happy to hear that this is a bridge extension, right? To get us to the point where we can use existing space that we have, and always excited to hear more opportunities for using the existing excess space that we have in buildings to house things rather than going outside. So thank you.
Yes, that is part of our current project we're working on.
Yes, thank you very much. All
Thank
right.
you.
The following slides list the standard monthly reports and motions that are listed in the Agenda Review Committee meeting agenda and posted online. Board members, this concludes the board reports on the public agenda. Are there any additional comments or questions on any items? Okay. We will now move into executive session. Board Member Woods, do you have motion MO2?
I move for the passage of motion number 24-0515-MO2 and the commencement of a closed session to consider matters permitted under Section 2C of the Open Meetings Act, subsections 1, 2, and 11 as specified in the motion.
Is there a second?
I second.
I'll proceed with a roll call. Member Fahey Hughes.
Yes.
Member Lozano.
Yes.
Member Woods.
Yes.
Member Estrada.
Yes.
Member Morales.
Yes.
Vice President Todd Breland.
Yes.
6 ayes, 0 nays. This motion is adopted by the board.
Okay, this meeting will now go into closed session. Board Secretary, the agenda, wrong order. The Agenda Review Committee of the Board of Education is reconvened. Board Secretary, please proceed.
Vice President Todd Breland, I would like to note for the record that there are no items to vote on from executive session.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.